Hey everyone, and welcome to 10 Surprising Facts. Today we're diving deep into the vast and vibrant tapestry of Asian history. When we think about history, it's easy to get caught up in the narratives we're familiar with. But Asia, with its millennia-old civilizations and empires, often gets relegated to a footnote instead of a chapter heading. And that's a real shame because Asia is the birthplace of so much. Philosophies that shaped the world, innovations that revolutionized warfare, and trade routes that connected empires. From the fertile crescent of the Indus River Valley to the bustling streets of modern-day Tokyo, we're about to uncover the stories that textbooks often miss. Get ready to explore ancient secrets, marvel at architectural wonders, and grapple with the complexities of cultural exchange and conflict. This isn't just about memorizing dates and names. It's about understanding how the events of the past continue to resonate in the present, shaping the world we live in today. So, buckle up, because we're about to embark on a journey through time, exploring 10 surprising facts about Asia's history that you probably didn't know. Let's get started. Alright, let's start our journey on a road. Not just any road though, but a network of roads so legendary they're etched into the very fabric of history, the Silk Road. Now you've probably heard of it, maybe even pictured caravans laden with luxurious silk making their way across deserts and mountains. And yeah, silk was a huge part of it, hence the name. But the Silk Road was so much more than just a way to get fancy fabric from point A to point B. It was like the internet of its time, connecting the East and West for over 1,500 years. Think about it. Goods, ideas, religions, even diseases traveled along these routes, transforming societies along the way. Imagine, for a moment, you're a merchant in Constantinople, now Istanbul, in the 7th century. You're haggling over the price of spices that have traveled thousands of miles from the Spice Islands, present-day Indonesia. Or picture yourself as a Buddhist monk in China, sending your disciples westward with scrolls containing the teachings of the Buddha. The Silk Road wasn't just a single path, but a complex web of interconnected routes that fostered cultural exchange on an unprecedented scale. This exchange wasn't always peaceful, of course, but it left an undeniable mark on the world, shaping everything from the clothes we wear to the religions we practice. In 1974, farmers in China were digging a well. Instead of water, they found a life-sized terracotta soldier. This was part of an army crafted to protect China's first emperor in the afterlife. The Terracotta Army is one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. Over 8,000 soldiers, each unique, with chariots, horses, and officials. It's a testament to the power and ambition of Qin Shi Huang. Excavations are still ongoing, revealing more secrets of China's ancient past. So we've talked about trade routes and terracotta warriors, but let's dive into something a little more, shall we say. We're talking about the spread of Buddhism. Originating in India with a prince named Siddhartha Gautama, who became known as the Buddha, this belief system focused on enlightenment and escaping suffering didn't stay put for long. Think of it like this. If the Silk Road was the internet of its day, then Buddhism was that really catchy song that goes viral and suddenly everyone's humming it, even if they don't speak the language. It started trickling along trade routes, carried by merchants and monks, like whispers on the wind. But it wasn't just the catchy tunes, or, well, the appealing philosophy. Buddhism met the needs of diverse people across Asia. It offered solace in uncertain times, provided a framework for social order, and even influenced art, architecture, and literature. From the towering stupas of Southeast Asia to the serene temples of Japan, Buddhism left its mark and continues to shape lives today. And that's what makes studying history so fascinating, isn't it? These ideas, these movements, they're not just dates on a timeline. They're living, breathing forces that transform the world and continue to resonate even now. Alright, let's talk about empires. Specifically, the biggest contiguous land empire in history, the Mongol Empire. And at the heart of it all, a charismatic, ruthless leader named Genghis Khan. Born in the steppes of Central Asia, he united fractured Mongol tribes which, let's be honest, is a bit like herding cats, only these cats were incredibly skilled warriors with a penchant for horseback riding and archery. Genghis Khan's strategy wasn't just about brute force, though. He was a master of logistics, communication, and even adopted technologies from conquered peoples. Imagine an army that moved with the speed and agility of a whisper, but packed the punch of, well, a really big explosion. That's the Mongol Empire in a nutshell. From the Pacific coast of Asia to Eastern Europe, the Mongols conquered vast territories, leaving an undeniable mark on the world. They weren't just conquerors, though. They fostered trade, religious tolerance, surprising, right? And facilitated cultural exchange between East and West. The Mongol Empire is a reminder that history isn't always a neat and tidy narrative. It's complex, messy, and often full of surprises. And sometimes the most unexpected players end up changing the course of history, for better or for worse. We often think of inventions as these aha moments, a lone genius toiling away in a lab. But the story of gunpowder, well, it's a bit more complicated and a lot more explosive. Originating in 9th century China, not as a weapon, but ironically as a pursuit of immortality by alchemists, gunpowder's discovery was more of a slow burn than a big bang. Imagine these alchemists experimenting with saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal, probably hoping to discover the elixir of life, and instead stumbling upon a recipe that would change warfare forever. Talk about unintended consequences, right? Early gunpowder weapons were a far cry from the sophisticated firearms we know today. Think fire lances, basically tubes that shot flames, and exploding arrows that, well, exploded. But the technology spread, making its way westward through trade routes. And along the way, it sparked a revolution in military technology. The invention and spread of gunpowder is a powerful reminder that technology is rarely invented in a vacuum. It's a product of its time, shaped by cultural exchange, and often driven by human curiosity, even if that curiosity leads to unexpected and sometimes world-altering consequences. Hey everyone, welcome back to 10 surprising facts about Asia's history. Today we're traveling to the land of the rising sun, Japan. For centuries, Japan was ruled by shoguns, but the Meiji Restoration in 1868 changed everything. Imagine a nation transforming overnight. It was like hitting the fast-forward button on modernization. Japan's social, political, and economic structures changed fundamentally. They learned from the West, sent students abroad, and brought in foreign experts. They modernized their military and industries. Japan became a major industrial and military power. They even defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War in 1905. All right, folks, buckle up because we're heading into some seriously complex and frankly, heartbreaking history, the partition of India in 1947. After centuries of British rule, India and Pakistan gained their independence. But this wasn't some joyous, peaceful separation. It was a chaotic and violent event that left a scar on the region that's still felt today. See, the problem was that British India wasn't some homogeneous entity. It was incredibly diverse, with Hindus and Muslims being the two largest religious groups. And as independence neared, tensions between these groups, fueled in part by the British policy of divide and rule, just exploded. So the decision was made to split British India into two independent states, India, with a Hindu majority, and Pakistan, with a Muslim majority. But here's where things get really messy. The partition itself was incredibly rushed, with borders hastily drawn. Millions of people suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of the line, leading to one of the largest mass migrations in human history. And it wasn't just a matter of packing up and moving, it was utter chaos, with widespread violence, killings, and displacement. It's estimated that up to 2 million people died in the violence surrounding the partition. The partition of India is a stark reminder of how quickly things can unravel, how deeply religious and ethnic divisions can run, and the human cost of political decisions. It's a story of loss, displacement, and unimaginable suffering. But it's also a story of resilience and the enduring hope for a better future. Let's talk about the Forgotten War, the Korean War. It turned a divided peninsula into a battleground and shaped East Asian geopolitics. Lasting from 1950 to 1953, it was a Cold War product. Korea was divided along the 38th parallel after World War II. The Soviet Union backed the North. The US supported the South. On June 25, 1950, North Korea invaded, aiming to unify the peninsula. The US and UN forces intervened for South Korea. The war was brutal, with intense fighting and massive casualties. It cemented Korea's division, with the DMZ becoming heavily fortified. Okay, so we've talked about wars and empires and cultural revolutions, but let's shift gears and talk about something else that's reshaped Asia. China's economic boom. I mean, seriously, in just a few decades, China went from like one of the poorest countries to a global economic powerhouse. How did that even happen? Well, it all started in the late 1970s with a dude named Deng Xiaoping. He was like, all right, comrades, this whole planned economy thing isn't really working out. Let's try something new. And that something new was opening up to the rest of the world, inviting foreign investment and letting market forces do their thing. And boy, did things change, like rapidly. Factories started popping up left and right, churning out everything from cheap toys to high-tech gadgets. People started getting richer, buying cars, building houses. It was like the whole country was on this crazy fast-forward button. Of course, this economic miracle didn't come without its challenges. Inequality, pollution, you name it. But there's no denying that China's economic rise has been one of the most significant events of our time, not just for Asia, but for the entire world. Alright, so we've been riding high on this wave of economic growth. But as they say, what goes up must come down. And in 1997, that's exactly what happened in Asia. It started with Thailand, but quickly spread like wildfire to other Southeast Asian countries, and even South Korea felt the burn. So what went wrong? Well, imagine a house of cards, right? That was basically the Asian economy at the time. You had all this rapid growth, but it was built on shaky foundations, risky lending, overinflated asset bubbles, and a whole lot of speculation. And then, boom! The Thai baht collapsed. Investors panicked, and suddenly, everyone was scrambling to pull their money out of Asia. Currencies plummeted, businesses went bankrupt, and millions of people were plunged into poverty. It was, to put it mildly, a really rough time. The Asian financial crisis was a harsh reminder that even the most booming economies are vulnerable to shocks, and that unchecked growth can sometimes come at a steep price. It also highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy. What happens in one part of the world can have ripple effects everywhere else. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of our whirlwind tour through 10 surprising facts about Asian history. From ancient empires and Silk Roads to economic booms and financial crises, we've covered a lot of ground. But trust me, we've barely scratched the surface. Asia's history is vast and complex, full of fascinating stories, remarkable achievements, and, let's be real, some pretty intense moments. But most importantly, it's a history that continues to unfold before our very eyes. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking questions. Because the more we understand about the past, the better equipped we'll be to navigate the present and shape the future. And who knows, maybe you'll even discover some surprising historical facts of your own along the way.